Foremost among the citadels of the Mediterranean is Gibraltar, a British crown colony and a mighty fortress which has played a most important part in the military history of Europe. Its strategic position as a gateway to the Mediterranean Sea has naturally made it the prized possession of the different powers who have in turn claimed dominion over it. Gibraltar is only 2.5 miles long and about a half a mile wide, but in that area, in addition to gigantic military fortifications, there is a busy little town with a population of about 20,000 inhabitants, and it is connected from end to end by one narrow main street, lined on both sides with a conglomeration of tiny shops in which goods from all parts of the world may be purchased at reasonable prices, as Gibraltar is a free port. Most of the native inhabitants are of Italian descent. There are also a number of Maltese and between 2,000 and 3,000 Jews who form a distinct colony of their own. The ancient Greeks regarded Gibraltar as one of the renowned pillars of Hercules, which for centuries marked the limits of enterprise for the seafaring peoples of the Mediterranean. An interesting contrast to the impregnable rock of Gibraltar is the Moorish Alhambra, another citadel of the Mediterranean, located on the southeast coast of Spain. About 700 years ago, the Moors, a warlike and aggressive people from Africa, invaded Spain and held dominion over the whole country until they were driven back to this so-called Vale of Heaven, where they founded their kingdom of Granada. The famous Alhambra, former palace and fortress of the Moorish kings, with the original Sierra Nevada mountains as its background, is one of the most picturesque sights in the world. The historic Gate of Justice, which marks the entrance to the Alhambra, is the gate through which passed the victorious Spanish monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, after they had conquered the last king of the vanquished Moors. Over 4 centuries later, we follow Ferdinand and Isabella into the Alhambra, which is regarded today as one of the world's most beautiful architectural achievements. The Hall of the Ambassadors, where Isabella, a Christian queen in a Mohammedan citadel, pledged her jewels for Columbus when she sent him on his first voyage to America. A remarkable feature about this intricate carving is its appearance of newness. One would think the work had just been completed today, instead of 400 years ago. The Mohammedan craftsman has put his whole soul into this delicately wrought lacework of masonry, just to tell us in the Arabic letters so artistically engraved here that there is but one God and Mohammed is his prophet. Although the Moors were Mohammedans and by their religion were forbidden to reproduce any form of animal life, we find a strange violation of this restriction in the Court of Lions, so called because of the figures of queer-looking lions which surround the fountain. It was in this beautiful setting that Washington Irving, while serving as American ambassador to Spain, wrote his romantic tales of the Alhambra, which immortalized the adventures of the Moors and aroused the interest of a literary world. Almost on a direct line from the Alhambra, across the Mediterranean Sea, lies the ancient and venerable metropolis of Athens, center of the glory that was Greece and preserver and guardian of what is known today as Western civilization. During the past 15 years, the city of Athens has more than doubled itself in size, and the cause of this amazing increase in population is an interesting story. After the World War, an exchange of subjects was arranged between the Greeks and the Turks, and in the exodus of citizens to their native soil, Greece was obliged to take back over 1 million Greeks who had emigrated to Asia Minor when Greece was under Turkish rule. And needless to say, Athens got more than her share of those who returned. And it was thus that a little country of about 3 million people, in dire circumstances, absorbed over 1 million refugees and heroically provided them with food and shelter. Perhaps the most famous citadel in the history of the white race is the Acropolis, which stands today in the heart of Athens, a picturesque and silent tribute to the glory that was Greece. It was built over 2,500 years ago as a fortress and after centuries of exposure to the onslaughts of warring nations, what is left of it has been preserved for the edification of a modern world. The most attractive building on the Acropolis is the Parthenon, which has passed through the vicissitudes of time with undying glory. Another famous Athenian landmark is the temple of the Olympian Zeus, high god of the ancient Greeks. Greece maintains an 18-month period of conscription in the regular army for all male citizens upon reaching the age of 19. And each year, about 50,000 recruits are impressed into military service. The new stadium at Athens has been built over the site of the original, in which the Olympic Games were introduced to the Western world. As a matter of individuality, no army has ever excelled that of Greece in costuming its soldiers, and no army or navy has yet developed a dance like the one that was staged for us by the President's bodyguard, crack regiment of the Greek army. The origin of this unique costume goes back to the Highlanders of Albania, and it is preserved in Athens today almost exclusively by the Presidential Guard. The early Roman soldiers copied it from the Greeks, and during their conquest of the British Isles, it was adapted and modified by the Scottish Highlanders. Remotely situated in the suburbs of Athens is a solitary cave, which is said to be the place in which the great philosopher, Socrates, was imprisoned just before he drank the hemlock poison, which the judges had prescribed as his punishment for thinking more cleverly than they. That was more than 2,000 years ago, but even today this hallowed ground is enlivened by a group of young Greek students who study the philosophy of Socrates with a spirit of devotion that is a tribute to the rising generation of Greece. Apparently, the innate desire for knowledge which characterized the ancient Greeks has not vanished entirely from the country which they glorify. As we gaze into these young and classic faces, time seems to fade completely, and we are carried back to the days when this banked with a group of students to whom he taught his simple but convincing philosophy. Glorious Athens, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and countless other teachers of humanity, from whom the white race has inherited most of its noblest qualities. Although many of its public buildings have been erected in recent age of Pericles, about 500 years before Christ, and this is indeed a great tribute to the architects of ancient Greece, whose classic architecture is still